you all today and welcome to today's meeting. My name is Councillor Taylor and I'm chairing today's meeting. But before we do that, could we go around and introduce ourselves? Should I start with Nicole?
Morning everyone, I'm Councillor Solskjaer and I'm from the City Council. Can you switch on?
Thank you. Good morning, it's Chris Hayden from Bradford.
Good morning, Councillor Andrew Carter Leeds.
Good morning, Councillor Jackie Ferguson Wakefield.
Good morning, Councillor Sarah Courtney from Coldale, and I'm subbing for Shazad Hassan.
Kitty Hamilton, graduate trainee in the Policy Partnerships team at Redfield Castle.
Good morning, Detective Chief Superintendent Nicola Bryan. I am head of PSD in West Yorkshire Police.
Morning, Chief Superintendent Russ Hughes. I'm the head of corporate services for West Yorkshire Police.
Good morning, I'm Catherine Hankinson, the Deputy Chief Constable for West Yorkshire Police.
Good morning, I'm Alison Lowe, Deputy Mayor for Peace and Crime in West Yorkshire.
Thank you. Morning, Wendy Stevens. I'm Research and Performance Manager for Policing and Crime Team at West Yorkshire Combined Authority.
Good morning, I'm Julie Reid. I'm Head of Policing and Crime at the Combined Authority.
Good morning, Trevor Lake, Independent Member.
I'm Councillor Brenda Monty from Calderdale Council.
Good morning, Councillor Stratton Family, Bradford Council.
Good morning, Celia Hickson, Bradford Council.
Good morning, Sharon Fraser from Bradford Council, Legal Advisor to the panel.
And good morning, Samantha Wilkinson, Police and Crime Panel Officer.
Thank you all, and also can I welcome all members, visitors in the chamber. You're welcome. Thank you. So could we move on to
Before we start, I've just watched you all using microphones. The microphone's got to be near your mouth, so everybody can hear you. If it's away from you, it will not work. It's too far away from you.
It will be a problem, keep pulling it and sharing it, isn't it? Okay, we'll try and do the best we can. So, should we move on to item 1?
We've had apologies from Joe Sykes, Councillors Anthony Smith, Shazad Fazal and Lynn Masterman.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for sending us today.
Can I also say we've had apologies for the Mayor? I'm Chief Constable, I presume.
Yeah, I think I know where they are. And I have to be here. Yeah. Item 2, taking that members have read the report and then comments. Yeah. Take it members have read the report. Is everyone happy with the comments from the report? Item 2.
Yeah, I'm happy to second the minutes.
Item 3. Most urgent on the agenda, and item 4 is for member to declare any interest at today's meeting. Trevor.
Yes, Chair, I have an interesting item, the item on independent panel member recruitment, which quite our meeting.
Before I go to item 5, we will change the agenda a bit round later on to the end of the programme. We'll move item 13 down to the very last one after date and time to allow Trevor to lead the meeting before we discuss the meeting, and also Alison and your team. So we'll go through the agenda, but we won't discuss item 13 until the last. Okay? So should we move into item 5, and Alison, can I go to you?
Yeah, thank you. So this is the online harm and interventions paper, supported by my colleague Neil, who wrote the paper. It's covering the national policy context as well as the work of West Yorkshire Police and WICA, obviously covering major areas of concern for us all around sexual exploitation of children, sexting, fraud and money rules, cyber offending, etc., which are massively growing. So I hope you've read the paper and happy to answer any questions.
Okay. We've got a few questions. First question will come from Trevor. Trevor?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Very good report, thanks for that. I've learned quite a lot of worrying facts, I suppose, but clearly a lot of activity ongoing. One of the things I wanted to ask was around 4.6.1, which is on page 6. And it's good to see that this iLearning training package is now mandatory learning. But of course, the issue there is how are you assured that the mandatory learning is happening? And it was really a question for you on that, and if you're able to share what level of mandatory training percentage completion rates there are currently.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I can't give you the up-to-date figure, but we do get annual figures on mandatory training through our PSD reports, or our People Directorate reports. And from time to time we might ask about, for example, the domestic abuse training compliance rates, the DEI compliance rates, which we ask about on a regular basis. We ask now about the training on RISDIP, which is about the investigation of sexual offences, for example, because those are of particular interest for us. So generally, we don't ask on a regular basis about all the mandatory training, but we do regularly ask about training that's obviously part of police and crime plan priorities, but on an annual basis, we are giving updates. This might be a question for the Deputy Chief Constable to answer in more detail.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Again, not got the exact figures, they change on a fairly regular basis, as you'd expect. However, to offer you some reassurance in terms of the updates that we ask for from a governance point of view more regularly, any mandatory training, iLearn or face-to-face, is governed and reported upon in our local accountability meetings, which is across all districts and directorates, and also at our force accountability meetings. So that's how we keep a track of where we're up to with all of the training. And for obvious reasons, there are some that we prioritise above others and request, much more higher rates more quickly, if you like. And this is one of those areas that will be captured as part of that accountability. And if you wanted a specific percentage at the moment, then we can get that, but it will be at a later stage. We'll feed that back to you.
Yeah, and we get copies of the performance information that goes to the lab. So the local accountability meetings, we get copies of that. Wendy gets copies, so we are aware of the performance in that regard.
Yeah, thanks very much. It might be useful for colleagues to have an update on the percentage completion of mandatory training, if that's not too difficult.
No, not for me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchinson.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. It was lovely to read all of the reports from the Mayor's Safer Communities Fund activities. But we just wondered, some of these intentions seem incredibly ambitious in terms, for example, of the NSPCC example at 5.5.1 on page 7 is an attempt to put a play about mental well-being and the implications of some of the exploitation and things that we're talking about, but it's trying to capture all pupils in years 5 and 6, and we wondered how your monitoring of that expenditure happens and how you get reported back to it.
So this will have been all pupils in years 5 and 6 of a particular school or set of schools. How people get access to this money is by putting an application forward to what we call a pupils panel, so a panel of trained members of the public and community safety partners who are represented, and the money is given on the basis of the targets, the metrics within the report. It's a small amount of money, so we don't put really onerous monitoring requirements. But I've met the NSPCC to talk about this piece of work, and in fact it was as a result of that meeting that they put in this bid. So it's not all years 5 and 6 in every school in West Yorkshire. It will have been a particular school or a series of schools in a particular area. I can get you more details of that and send you the application, that's not a problem.
It was more about the impact.
So obviously one programme in one or more schools is going to have some impact on some children. It won't have 100% of impact on 100% of children. But I think any difference we can make, if we can save one child, then that is definitely worth £8,000 of public money. But we hope that not just the work that NSPCC are doing, but other partners working in education, together with PolEd, of course, which is in 92% of all West Yorkshire schools now. We hope that the impact will begin to proliferate across more children, young people and more schools. But we all have to do something different, so any ideas people have to do that work in schools, we do celebrate and welcome.
Yeah, you please. How's the first?
Have I got this microphone too?
Yes.
Thank you. Lots of interesting stuff going on in this report. It's great, great to read. And I think your last answer might have sort of partly answered my question, which is about how are the specific areas chosen? Is it how are they allocated? The projects, the interventions. How does it work? I suppose really I'm saying.
So we talk about the Mayor Safe Communities Fund.
Yeah.
So as you know, we do a big public advertisement when each fund comes live. So we have about 2 funds per year, depending on how much money the police economic crime unit have secured for us. So they confirm the money. We then work out how much money we've got to spend. We look at the police and crime plan priorities. And agree with the Mayor what those priorities are going to be for that round. We advertise far and wide and get you to help us to do that too. And then grassroots groups, organisations, statutory bodies sometimes apply for that money. We've then got a panel of trained members of the public and CSP partners in each local area come together, and they do a huge evaluation of all those bits. And so we'll have an idea about how many bids can get through based on the amount of money that we've got, and they will decide. So it's nothing to do with West Yorkshire Combined Authority, me, the Mayor. We have nothing to do with any of the decision making. That panel will then score each of the applications, and if only 20 can be funded, the top 20 then get funded. And we obviously then tell. I actually went to go visit 3 projects this year that had all bid, and not one of them had got funded. It was a bit embarrassing, but I have nothing to do with it. So, yeah, it's a really fair and transparent process.
Okay, thank you. Sarah.
Thank you. And just following on from that question, so in terms of the sort of region, the specific areas that get funding, is there any sort of intelligence about sort of whether there's no sort of hotspots is the wrong word obviously, but in areas where there's children who are, or young people who are more at risk, and then is there any sort of targeting those sort of through that fund, or is that targeted in different ways?
So we try to make sure that each area is successful based on its size and its population. The community safety partners are there to ensure that the priorities of each area are obviously taken into account in each of the bids that win. So they don't want something to win that's not going to deliver for them and their locality, but neither do they want something to win that's not part of the Mayor's priorities. It's got to be one of the Mayor's priorities as part of that grant fund round. So we then do a report to the Mayor before all the allocations are made. We do a report to me and the Mayor that says how much money is being allocated, how many groups, by locality, so we know exactly where the gaps are. And if there are gaps, we think, well, Wakefield's not done very well this time, or Holyrood's not done very well this time. we'll then work with CSP and local third sector organisations next time round to really target that area to get them to put in more bids. And I have to say that actually that's been quite successful, and it does tend to mirror the populations. Bradford have been doing particularly well the last couple of rounds, having not done so well a few years before. So yeah, we do try to take account of locality. We want everybody to benefit from this money.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, that's what I carry on with my sort of question that I was going to ask. So obviously, as you've said, you know, even if one child is helped through this, it's money well spent, because the effects of exploitation and abuse last the lifetime of the person that's survived that. So you know, and that has a huge cost to them and to us all as a society, both from a wellbeing point of view and economically. So it is good, but I suppose is there a way, or how do we, you know, it's great interventions, but how, and we know that the number of children or young people at risk is ever increasing, sadly. How do we measure the efficacy of interventions generally, not just through these sort of the funds, but just generally efficacy of actions that we're taking to try and help combat, you know, the bad things that are happening?
Yeah. So obviously NSPCC have got their own metrics that they put into that, for an example. But the NSPCC are a national charity with a huge R&D department, huge performance frameworks that they've developed over years and years. So they do that very, very easily. Some tiny grassroots organisations struggle to do that, but we want to. So I'm thinking, for example, of Blossom, a charity that works in Wakefield to build self-confidence of women through self-defence classes. And they would really struggle to demonstrate how that had, for example, prevented domestic abuse or prevented other crimes from being committed. But what we do, we go visit them all, of course, to see the impact on the people that are benefiting. They do complete an evaluation form. When they've completed the programme, they complete an evaluation form. Everybody has to do that, otherwise they've got to pay the money back. So there are basic metrics within that evaluation form that they have to demonstrate. But it's a very small amount of money. So we try not to be disproportionate in our expectations for performance measures and metrics. And it's about really, is this supporting our local groups? Most of the beneficiaries are grassroots groups, organisations. Is it benefiting the communities that we're serving? Is it building resilience? Is it building confidence? And is it helping those communities to better combat crime and criminality in their area? And maybe that's a feeling, I don't know, but the feedback we get is that people really value the work we're doing, not just the organisations that are being funded, but also the recipients of the services that are being delivered. And you know, we have events every year when we give out the cheques, and we ask people to give us case studies, and you must come because they'll make you cry. Yeah. They are amazing. So I can't count it in numerical terms, but in terms of lived experience, in terms of outcomes for the people who tell their stories, it's very powerful. And I think the fact that so many people value this money is proof positive that it's adding value for the people of West George.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alison. And as it's a very good report, very detailed report and good read. So thank you for that. We'll now move on to item 6, neighbourhood crime and social media.
Yes, thank you very much. This is just an update on neighbourhood policing and on social behaviour. It's also supported by an update on the immediate justice pilot, which we've got Julie here, which obviously we've been really pleased to pilot that project. We are the best performing in the country, by the way, just to throw that one in. Just really happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Again, Alison, this is a well detailed report, but you know the views in this, I won't say it. So the first question is from Councillor Shaw.
Thanks, Chair. My question might not actually be to you, Alison. It's about hotspot policing. So when we have PAC meetings, which for people who don't know that meeting, police and community together meetings. Residents speak to the MPT teams and the highlight spots in the area where there might be antisocial behaviour, and they call it a poppy, the MPT teams. Is hotspot policing similar but on a higher level?
I think it's similar but on a lower level.
Lower level.
So you mean POP during POP?
Yes, yeah.
It's not the same, is it?
Well, I suppose it's all part of problem solving in neighbourhood policing. Hotspot policing would be part of solving the problem in a particular area, wouldn't it? So I think if, I don't know, take an example of a number of break-ins to sheds in a particular area, for example, we might put more visible policing presence in a particular area at certain times to problem solve, i.e. perhaps see people out and about, gain intelligence from chatting to people that PCSOs do so well. So it is part of, the hotspot policing would be a tactic that would be used as part of the overall problem solving for a particular issue. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, it does, because it's brilliant, works really, really well.
And obviously there's hotspot policing that's all around knife crime in the city centre, which obviously is around object lock and trying to reduce and eliminate serious violence in our towns and cities, which is also part of hotspot policing.
So the second question, the funding provide extra officers?
So we have had hotspot money from the government to predominantly around serious violence in our locality. So we have had additional money. I think it's just under £1 million, Julia?
Yeah, around hotspots.
Yeah.
Specifically, it's combined with the GRIP funding this time round.
Yeah. So we did cut it. We did merge it with the GRIP funding, which is the Opgemlock money, and we did get a reduction. But it was about additionality. I have to say that most of that additionality has really been over time, more than new police officers. But obviously, if you give regard to the fact that we've had probably over 900 new officers net over the last 3 years as a result of the uplift, then we've also benefited from our officers, but from a different pot of money.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's good to see this is a particular question about neighbourhood policing teams and the numbers. Yeah, in the chart on page 6, item 2.2.2. It was really trying to get my head around the impact on the shortfall in the chart on 2.2.2. And that's quite a big shortfall, 15% shortfall on PCs on neighbourhood staffing laws, and the overall 10% shortfall. And I might have missed it, the clarification about how that's going to be made up to get you back onto budget.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the money to recruit the officers, but obviously they're coming through really slowly through the uplift programme because of the PEQF, the Police Education Qualification Framework. Quite a lot of our new officers have got a 3-year training programme, so coming through into frontline policing is taking a long time, which is why some of us were totally against the PEQF, but we are where we are, and it's now being not replaced, but we've now got permission to have a 4th way, which is going to be the NVQ, which I think is preferential. Catherine, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is due to us having the budget, as you say. We've increased the budget of the number of neighbourhood officers, haven't we? But it is that we can't put brand new officers when they land, as the Deputy Mayor's just said, straight into neighbourhood policing because they need to do all of their basic training, if you like, first. So it is that pathway. So we do have a pathway planned in the same way that we do for safeguarding and lots of other more specialist areas, but people that come in new do have to find their feet and understand policing in its more general sense so that they are then, the best neighbourhood or safeguarding officers that they can be.
Well, when do you think that might be on budget then, on that basis?
I mean, it depends on quite a few things really in terms of numbers of people that leave, other specialists, because everything starts with your more generalist, brand new police officers and moves through the organisation, the more specialist functions that we have pull, as you would expect from district policing, because that's always the case. So it's not necessarily something that you can put an absolute deadline on because things change so frequently. I suppose what I can reassure you is that there is a plan to, given the fact we've had an uplift, to step those people through into those places.
Yeah. And I think it's also fair to say that some specialist areas, as Catherine said, did take priority. So we were told by government that we had to, for example, take some of the new cohort. In fact, worse still, we had to take detectives into specialist areas such as counter-terrorism, regional organised crime unit. Obviously, we had to uplift safeguarding. So all those were priorities before neighbourhood policing, and much of that was mandated by the government when the new intake happened. So we didn't have a lot of choice.
Yeah, thanks. That explains that nicely. Thank you. So whilst we're on that, can we just move on to 2.3.2, which is about volunteer areas? And there seems to be quite a big drop on the previous year, with both specials and PSV. And I mean, I tried to work out from 2.4.2 if that's going to get back up to where it was. I don't know how many hours a special constable typically does per week. I mean, I guessed 5 and kind of worked it through, and I came up with 1,500 hours a year from the 7th, which still leaves it short if it's 4,000 down on last year.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
so I have no
it's
idea.
a good question. It's one we've been asking. So we've actually had 2 papers from the command team about their strategy around specials. The Mayor is funding 50% of the membership of Federation for specials so that we can encourage more people to become specials. We've met with a representative from the specials who has given us their perspective as part of our triangulation exercise, and we've also had reassurances from the command team about the process that they're undertaking. One of the big reasons why they've struggled to get specials, especially following COVID, was that there was a really high expectation for the number of hours that they would do each week, and the training requirement was quite difficult for most people who had a job. So I think they've relaxed that now, so they've looked at redrafting the training programme, which is less reliant on people giving quite as much time, and hopefully that will lead to more people giving time. The other thing to say is that some specials have now become police officers because of the uplift programme, and so that's definitely had an impact on both specials and volunteers, the fact that so many vacancies became available. People have obviously used that, as PCSOs did too. It's obviously a pathway to policing.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense about uplifting to full-time roles. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah.
The recruitment window is open at the moment for specials. So
anyone want to do it?
If anybody knows anybody who'd like to be a special constable, please message out there. It's a fantastic thing to do.
Yeah, my question kind of follows on a little bit from what Trevor was talking about in terms of numbers, and it was specifically around 2.5 and the police education qualification framework. And we did note in the report the impact on operational practices of the programme, in that students were aware. And we're aware that there is a new scheme in progress, and we wondered if you could outline how the new scheme will avoid some of the issues of the previous schemes in terms of the particular reference to resignations post-graduation, so that when you get someone who's qualified but then leaves the force.
Yeah, so the PQF was the brainchild of Priti Patel when she was Home Secretary, and she wanted to professionalise policing, although I think policing is pretty professional already, so she wanted there to be a degree associated with becoming a police officer, which is a great thing. You know, no one's got a problem with that except the practicalities of it, and only having that as the route in was also problematic, because we would like a blended approach really. So the cost of the PQF has been prohibitive, for example, because you've got to have a university partner to deliver that degree, but also the time scales for a police officer to both get a degree and become a police officer, when I think previously it was 18 weeks. Yeah, you had an 18 weeks. So you went from 18 weeks to 3 years. So the pressure on police officers has been immense. Doing a degree, those of us around the table who have got degrees will know how hard that was, as well as being police officers. So you only have so much time to do the basics of policing and learn how to be a police officer whilst also doing a degree. So after 3 years, you don't really get what you would have got under the old system with somebody who had done 18, 19 weeks and then got 2.5 years on the, on the front line. You don't have that anymore. Some people, maybe join in all good faith, but realise, oh, it's a free degree at the end of this, because it's a free degree. You don't have 50, 60, 70,000 pounds worth of debt. So some people have thought, I've got my degree, I'll go. So we said that would be an outcome. We've experienced less attrition through that route than many other forces. We have asked for the data on a regular basis. We've lost more people at the end of the degree than others, and I meet with Trinity University, who are our university partners, every 6 months, and I ask about attrition, I ask about attainment gaps and things like that. So we're not doing too badly, but it is a fact that some people end up with a degree that's very nice and they don't leave. But also, it's really, really hard to do a degree and be a police officer over 3 years. So I think we've seen some people just feeling that they're not suited to the role. We asked for a report a couple of months ago on the exit, why people were leaving policing, and actually not suited to the role was the biggest category. That was a reason why people were leaving. And I think if you do the 18 weeks and then straight on the front line, you find that out a bit quicker than after 3 years, and after you can't leave before the 3 years if you want to get your degree. So it's been very problematic for us. But I do need to say that the police have been quite creative in trying to fill some of those gaps. So it's not in the report, and I don't know why it's not in the report, because actually it's really good. I went to Wakefield senior leadership team this week, and they told me all about their remote resolution team. So yes, they're struggling with some of the deficits that they've got in terms of PC vacancies. So what they've done in Wakefield, and I think they're rolling it out across the whole of the force, and maybe it's already rolled out, is that they're doing a bit of a triage of cases that come in, so that they don't always have to do a face-to-face visit. So, for example, in the last 12 months, the last month in Wakefield, they attended 1,012 matters that were reported to them, and they resolved but did not attend 750. Their confidence survey scores have gone up 7%. So people don't mind, it appears in these early days, people don't mind them not attending. What they want is good communication, and so this remote resolution team is ringing up, and I think it's made up of quite a lot of young officers. They're ringing up, giving that information, they're helping people to resolve whatever it is they want the police to resolve, but they're not going out because the triage is saying that they don't always need to. So maybe it's the way forward, I don't know, but it's looking good in the early days.
You okay?
Yep.
Thanks, Laka.
Thank you, Chair. Could I refer you to, on item 6, Appendix A, and it's a fairly broad point, really, but on page 2, it refers to working with councils, and yet when it comes down to partnership, it lists 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 partners, none of which are the 5 local authorities. It's a general question really, because my experience is that there is some disconnect on antisocial behaviour. Much of what you say here is absolutely correct, and I'm not disputing it at all. But I hear far too many constituents, people saying that when it comes to antisocial behaviour, we pass it from one department to another, be it the council's antisocial behaviour team, whether it be another part of the council, happy that we are as joined up as we need to be in dealing with antisocial behaviour in terms of a multi-agency, including council involvement.
Yeah, thanks very much. I think it's an error because actually the local authorities are key partners to the immediate justice pilot. And if you look at 3.7, where we talk about children aged 12 to 17 years, you'll see that we've actually given local authorities money to recruit restorative justice workers who work with predominantly young people. But we also rely on antisocial behaviour teams to refer into the scheme, both adults and children. So it's just an mission. So thank you for that. We'll make sure it's picked up in further iterations.
Could you update that, please, Alice?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. We've got no more questions on this item. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Chair, can I... Sorry, just before we move on, just an observation really, on the report, item 6, page 17. It's a very detailed report. There's a huge amount of data in there. A lot of it is very interesting to read through. I just wondered if, that particular graphic on that page showing the breakdown by district and also by category is really useful. And then further down, a similar on page 21, similar breakdown there in even more detail by area. I just wondered, when I was reading it, it was very interesting to understand the breakdown between the different divisions. It might be helpful against MSF, most similar force, or some other metric to kind of get a comparison. So is that typical? Is it good? Is it not so good? I was struggling to get a perspective on it from a broader view.
Yeah. So you're saying, are the issues that we're facing similar to the issues that are being faced in other localities in the to the same degree? Yeah, we're really happy to look into that because we do have access to the Power BI. I don't know if it breaks it down by area in that way.
No, as we've talked about before, antisocial behaviour is now a mixture of crimes and incidents. We do get the breakdown of the crime types that are seen here, but the incident types nationally, I haven't seen any. Do you know of any, Catherine? Nationally, incident ASB?
No, but
No.
we will be able to get comparisons, won't we, between most similar forces and crime areas.
It's
I suppose the caveat on that, which we can explain in any report, is there will be, especially around things like antisocial behaviour, a caveat to put on there about crime data integrity, because that is an area that, very often a multitude of criminality can be reported in what is quite a complex incident, and forces who are good at crime data integrity, like ourselves, will be really good at picking out those different crime types and making sure they're all recorded. So there's that caveat as well in terms of numbers versus other forces, but there's certainly comparisons that we can make between us and similar forces around the basket of ASB.
Yeah, I think that'd be really. I think we've got it in the PSD report. There's quite a lot of comparisons of MSF in there. So even on a high level, it would be quite useful, notwithstanding the integrity of the data, but that would be quite helpful for future reports.
Yeah. So the next ASB report, we'll try to pull that out for you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then deal with them.
Is there any question from the members? No? Okay, we'll move on to item 7. Item 7. Joyce, there's a Sarah subject, so it's Sarah and Trevor. Alison, will you introduce?
Yeah, not very much to say. This is the overview of complaints and conduct matters dealt with by the Police and Crime team, and my colleague Karen, who wrote the report, is here to answer any questions specific to her. And then Appendix A provides an overview of the work of West Yorkshire Police's Professional Standards Department. Obviously, we've got Nicola who heads up that function to answer any specific questions about that.
Okay, so should I
No, you can ask me. And
That's
then
okay.
if I can't answer, I'll...
John, Sarah and Trevor. Is there anything you'd like to input before we go to residents?
Well, I just had a question really around the oversight of the process on the identified themes. I mean, again, very, very detailed report, lots of information in there, huge amount of data and information, and from my perception, it reads as a very good performance, which I think has been coming through the last couple of years from the PhD team. Notwithstanding that, to get even better, what's the process for identifying the themes from yourself as to how they can be followed up to make that improvement, rather than waiting for another year of the report? So how are you sort of cited on the areas that you want to develop the most improvement?
Yeah, obviously I'll let Karen come in on the detail of that, but the panel asked several years ago for us to try to understand the themes that were coming out, and it's taken a lot of work to come up with a system that then helps us to log the theme on the case management system so that we can be more helpful to you and indeed to us in understanding what the big issues are for the public in terms of complaints, and they tend to be about this that anticipated. And the team regularly, I suppose, triangulate what's happening here in West Yorkshire with their peers across the country. So they meet regularly with their peers across the country. In fact, they had a session in our offices in Michael last October, which I spoke at. They meet each other to peer review their understanding of what's happening, how to improve. I meet with the team on a regular basis to understand what the issues are for them, where we feel we can improve. Obviously I meet with the public, and when I meet with the public I get a briefing which helps me to understand what the issue was for the member of the public, but also what our review decision was, why that decision was reached. So there's quite a lot of learning going on an ongoing basis, and understanding of where we are compared to our most similar forces and wider. We meet with the IOPC, I meet with them, and the team meet with them, to look at what's happening in West Yorkshire, but also there are learning opportunities with the IOPC, and there are newsletters that the IOPC shares. So there's quite a lot of peer review, checking and challenging, both internally and externally. And ultimately it's about the public, what the public think about the outcomes of reviews and whether or not they feel we've done a good job. And they would automatically come to me, and we get very few of the public unhappy with the process that's been undertaken, because we've always also got a really good rationale about how we've achieved it, how we've come to the conclusion that we have. But Karen, anything you would like to add?
But in terms of, I got the impression that your question was more about oversight of the force. Is that correct?
No, it's really just
right.
the themes. I think Alison's answered it mainly in that how she cross-checks it with other sources of information as to whether these themes are the right themes that you're pursuing.
I mean, one of the things we do is we also have an oversight role of the police complaints process, and in the governance reports that we provide to Alison and Tracy, we do list any oversight issues that we've raised. So that's really the themes. I know I've been asked in the past at this meeting what are the themes coming out of the reviews, and actually they're all so varied. There aren't that many common issues coming out, but the oversight role that we play does capture where we think there are some issues.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Obviously the PSD review officers, the professional standard review officers, have a really high workload, and although positive support to officers has been provided by the appointment of the hearing officer role, which is really good that's happening, and it's significantly reduced the burden of the organising and administering of hearings. So this role is reported as being up for review this summer. So I was just wondering what influence you have over the continuing funding of this role in order to further accelerate the PSD processes. That's sort of the first bit of the question.
I mean, obviously, if the Mayor and I felt that the time taken to resolve processes was too long, then we'd be holding the police to account for their decision making for funding this post or not, and that's our influence really. I think that if you look at the number of misconduct and gross misconduct cases now going to hearings, it would be really short-sighted of the police to reduce the support and capacity in that team. And because of all the trust and confidence issues that we've heard about over the last 3 to 4 years, more people are now going to hearings than ever before, more dismissals are taking place than ever before. So I would be surprised if the police, didn't want to really show the public that they have trust and confidence in their own systems by funding that post. So I'd be surprised if that post wasn't funded.
Okay. Are you confident that the overall workload in PSD is being managed sufficiently well to prevent any negative effect on complaint process and response times and processes?
But generally speaking, yes. Clearly, it's not just about West Yorkshire Police; it's also about the IOPC. So often there are cases that are twin tracked. So the IOPC are investigating, the West Yorkshire Police are investigating. Sometimes things go to court and you can't undertake a hearing until all the other elements have been concluded. So the pace is not always in the gift of PSD, but I think you'll see from the data that they're definitely improving in terms of the number of cases that are turning around. Nicola, you're here, so if there's anything you want to add, I'm very happy for you to do so.
No, in respect of public complaints, certainly when you look at the stats in comparison to most similar forces, we favour quite well, and the IOPC are really pleased with our performance in that respect, and that we try and deal with complaints as quickly as we can because we don't want more complaints to come. So hopefully if we deal with it right the first time, then that complaint will get filed and that person will be satisfied. So that's kind of the ethos, and we've implemented processes within our department. So if somebody isn't happy at the end of that complaint investigation, we ask them why they're not. Rather than just send a letter, we actually speak to them verbally on the phone, and if there's anything more we can do to hopefully stop a review having to take place, which will then either go to the Mayor's office or the IOPC. The IOPC at the moment are 12 months behind with their reviews, which is not good for the person making that complaint who wants to know what the outcome is going to be. But the delays with the IOPC, not with West Yorkshire in respect of those. But we are also doing other work to make ourselves more accessible, so if people do want to make a complaint, they know where to go. And we've done some community events in Hare Hills to raise the awareness of PSD, so if people want to know who deals with their complaint, they can actually see the individuals who are handling that complaint in West Yorkshire.
Thank you. Thank you. Does members would like to ask any questions, policy? No? Comfortable with the explanation? Okay, thank you, Alison. We move on to item 8. This may be please, Alison. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just wanted to tell panel about an upcoming launch event for the Child First framework. So Child First is a lens that we're going to be applying to our new police and crime plan, which is currently in development. So hopefully people will want to attend this event. It's happening on Thursday the 18th of July when we hold our Framing Our Futures event. And it's going to be co-produced with over 450 children across West Yorkshire. And it outlines how children would like to work with us to operate the Child First framework in practice. So anyone's invited if you want to come and have a look at how that's working. We might send an invite to Joe because I know that's in the interest of Joe and the members. The imminent launch of the consultation on the police and crime plan is just about to happen. So next Tuesday we're going to launch the Tell Tracy, the latest version of the Tell Tracy consultation process. Done a lot of work, the team have done a lot of work on trying to make sure we've got a really coherent and inclusive plan, and hopefully you'll all be part of helping the people that you represent to feed into that process. It's going to run until the end of October, so giving people a long period of time. We'll hold events as well during now and the end of October. Might be some specific workshops that we might hold. So again, we'll keep you informed with all the things that are in the plan. But we're quite excited about that. And we will include in the plan, obviously, the consultation, our intention to focus on serious violence. So we're going to ask the public what they think about that, and hopefully they'll be supportive of that. And then finally, just to say that I went to the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners General Meeting yesterday and the day before, and we had a presentation from the new Home Secretary who told us about her priorities for policing. It was really heartening to hear that she wants to work in partnership with the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners and continue the really good work. Actually, we had a really good relationship with Chris Philp, and hopefully we'll continue to work with Dame Diana Johnson, who's a new policing minister, in the same way. Her two foci, sorry, I did Latin, sorry, are prevention and trust and confidence. So they're the two strong themes that she really wanted us to focus our minds on in the coming 4 years. And so we'll think about how we can include that in our police and crime plan consultation. But yeah, prevention of crime and then trust and confidence. And very finally, just to say that we are working together with West Yorkshire Police on prison places, working with our prison governors in the region. I chair the Yorkshire and Humber Rehabilitation Board. We've set up a regional reducing reoffending and rehabilitation board, which Simon from our office leads on. And so we're really conscious of the crisis that's currently in play with prison places. There's likely, I don't know if it's going to happen today or another day, there's likely to be an announcement about people only, some prisoners only serving 40%. I have to say that those conversations happened before the election, so we were talking to the last Home Secretary and Minister of Justice about that before the election. And it's likely that that will happen, and obviously we need to manage that because I think the public will be very upset. But unfortunately the situation we've got with prison places is dire, and yeah, we're hoping to use all the processes and systems we've got through our Yorkshire and Humber Regional Board and the local board to see how we can work in partnership to do things differently. And the Mayor and I have already written to the Chief Constable to ask him what his response is, what he can do better and differently to help us. And we're also talking to prisons and probation senior staff about what we can do here in West Yorkshire. So watch this space.
It's not so much a question as a comment really about the 40% release, because I've already had residents contacting me, especially with regard to domestic abuse issues and things like that. So I think, you know, the communication around this is going to be crucial. So that's just my...
yeah. That's my views as well. Obviously, which prisoners will be released with this, you know, how they're going to work it out. Because I would like the violent prisoners, women and girls, and very violent to be looked at. I quite understand youth offenders, you know, they're in there for, but they're not getting the support. So I quite understand that they can rehabilitate outside. But for serious offenders, I'd really like them to care for how they're going to bring them back.
Yeah, and even with the former government, the policy was always not to release high-risk offenders, dangerous offenders, but actually some domestic abuse perpetrators were being released. And so, you know, it's how decisions are taken about who gets released and when, because actually it's not even good for the prisoners, because many of them are in maybe West Yorkshire from another bit of the country. They're released without accommodation, without jobs, without treatment pathways. Anecdotally, in one part of West Yorkshire, when the early release scheme first started, we were being told about drugs deaths related to the early release scheme because people were not on drugs treatment programmes. There would have been if there'd been a proper planned approach to it. Anecdotally, the police are linking an increase in burglary, both domestic and business burglaries, to the early release scheme, because people are trapped up here when they need to get that. They've got no money, they've got no way of getting a place. So there are all sorts of implications for our communities. So it's a big issue.
It is a big issue, and we have to think of the public first. Thank you. Oh, sorry, sir.
Yeah, just on this topic. I think it's I'm really heartened to hear of some of the things that I'm hoping will come through around this and about people who are not going to prison in the first place, you know, sort of, who are have not committed serious or violent crimes. So sort of, you know, debt pay, you know, not having to pay debts. I know it's a relatively small number of people who end up in prison through not paying council tax bills and stuff like that, but that doesn't serve anybody at all. And actually, I was listening to on the radio this morning on the way over, and the commentator was talking about the fact that actually frequent short stops in prison for people actually increases their criminality. It's sort of actually, you know, is not good for anybody. It's not good for us as a population. It's not good for those individuals. So I think, and I know that you do a lot of work on prevention, and I think, you know, prevention and other bits of the, you know, non-custodial sentences. I think, you know, working with the judicial system is really positive to just stop people having the number of people going into prison that really doesn't serve anyone from being there.
And we do want to really work with the police on out-of-court disposals, looking at alternatives to custody. 61% of people in prison have got non-violent, are in there for non-violent crimes, and we know 40% of people in custody are reoffenders. So obviously the appointment of James Timpson is a great relief, because he walks the talk. He's been employing people with offending backgrounds for many years. And hopefully some of the lessons that he will help us to make some different decisions. That there's a risk, of course, because out-of-court disposals mean we've got to have a course or some programme for people to attend. I did say some months ago that the courses for high-risk domestic abusers that had been cut by the MOJ. So they said they were going to review it and go out to tender at a future date. They still haven't gone out to tender, so there is no provision for high-risk domestic abusers, and the low to medium domestic abuse courses, the mayor funds, and we don't get any extra money, and we're obviously being called upon to do all sorts of things with a reducing pot of money. So none of this is easy, but we know what we want to do, to find a way of doing it.
Yes, we can. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 9. Public key decisions. And I'm just wondering, is your website up since, it hasn't been updated since June? Was it because of the election? Will it be updated soon?
Yes, so we had the mayor's election, and then almost immediately we had the general election, so we weren't allowed to make any decisions in case it was seemed to be impacting on elections, so that's why no decisions have been made.
Item 10. Members have seen the action logs. Members.
Yeah, I just had a query, Chair. So I think it's the penultimate point about the breakdown and clarification of some numbers. I mean, we raised this back in March. I didn't think it was going to be such a big thing. In relation to the numbers in the paper were perhaps not presented in a very clear manner for us, and I think it was agreed to take it away and just send us a separate. I envisage it being a separate note outside of the meeting. I just wonder if that's something that we can have quickly, please.
I don't see why not. Yeah. Okay,
thank you.
And actually, I think it's in the com papers. I think this, but we'll sort it out. We'll come back to it.
Item 11. Action plan.
Yeah, can I just comment on that? On item 5, today, we had a number of people called a good report. I thought it was frightening before, quite frankly. So it depends how you interpret the word good. And I see there is no place right through until December for an update on online harm and interventions, which deals heavily with child sexual abuse and grooming. And I would like to think we have another report and an
We'll have
update
to
on
say the
progress
report before then.
long before December.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 12. Just for panel to note, remove item 13, so we'll go down to item 14. Any other business? No? So next date and time of the meeting will be 13th of September. So I'm looking forward to see you. We've got lots of members to remain. And I want to say thank you all for coming and have a lovely weekend. I know we got excited then Sunday, and I'm sure it's going to come home. And please enjoy the weekend. Thank you.